Hey guys, welcome to lesson number 14. This is the beginning of unit 11, which is going to be surface area and volume. Before we actually get into surface area and volume, we're just going to look at area of different shapes, and we're going to start off by looking at area and circumference of a circle. So first thing I want you to do is I want you to pause the video and go ahead and identify these different segments and lines in a circle. Okay, a little bit of review from last unit. This one here, if we have a line that goes through the circle at 2 points, we have a secant. A segment that has endpoints on both sides of the circle and goes through the center is a diameter. Segment that has both points on a circle, but it doesn't have to go through the center, is a chord. Then we have a line that touches the circle at 1 point, so it stays on the outside, that's our tangent. And then the point where that tangent touches is our point of tangency. Okay, start off a little bit of review, area and circumference of a circle. So to a little bit of reminder, okay, we're going to be using pi when we're talking about circumference, when we're talking about area, when we're really talking about anything to do with a circle. And so just remember, pi is a button on our calculator. Pi is this decimal, 3.14159, that goes on forever. And so our answers are going to be rounded when we're doing these problems. So a little bit of reminder here. Circumference of a circle, C, is 2 pi radius. Okay, so 2 times pi, this number here, times r, which remember is our radius. All right, so remember the radius is the distance from the center of the circle to the outside of the circle. So this distance from here to here, or this distance from here, or this distance from here to here. Okay, so both of those are our radius. Okay, so it's 2 times pi, this number in your calculator, times whatever the radius is. Area is pi times radius squared. So whatever the radius times itself. Remember when we're doing this, okay, order of operation tells us to do exponents before it multiplies. So you have to take whatever the radius is and square it before you multiply it times pi. All right, let's look at a couple examples. So first examples here. First thing we need to recognize, if you look at both of our formulas, circumference equals 2 pi r and area equals pi r squared. Both of these formulas, the only unknown that we have is our radius. So the only thing we're worried about when we're finding circumference and area is just the radius. So if I look at this problem here, I get radius is 5 centimeters. So all I have to do to find circumference and area, circumference equals 2 times pi times 5. So that's going to give me 10 pi. So if I type that into my calculator, you should be getting 31.4 because it's asking us to round it to the nearest tenth. Circumference is just a unit, so it's centimeters. Area, and we're looking at that, same thing. The only thing we need is the radius. So we take pi times radius squared. Again, order of operation tells me to take 5 times 5 first. I get 25 pi. So area here is going to be 25 pi in my calculator, which is going to give us 78.5 centimeters squared because it's area. Okay, over here, same thing. The only thing we have to do first here, find our radius. Well, if they give us the entire diameter is 18, then we got to do half of that to find our radius. So our radius is 9 inches. So for our circumference, we get 2 pi times 9, which is 18 pi. We can type that into our calculator. For area, we get pi times 9 squared, which is 81 pi. Again, we can type that into our calculator. Okay, go ahead and pause the video and try these two examples here. All right, check your answers here on these two problems. Make sure you have the correct answers, and let's move on. The second thing we're going to do here is this thing called arc length and area of a sector. Okay, so a little bit of review. Remember, an arc is the distance from one point on the circle to another endpoint on the circle. So this is an arc. We'd call this arc AB. And so what we're going to do is we're going to find the length of that arc. Now, all we're going to do here, we know the circumference is the distance around the outside. And so in order to find the arc length, this length of this arc right here is just a piece of the entire circumference. And so all we're going to do here is we're going to take this circumference and we're going to figure out how much of the circle are we looking at. And so the way we're going to do that is we're going to look at this thing that we've talked about before with our central angle. Okay, and so all we're going to do for arc length is we're going to take the central angle divided by 360. So that's going to tell me how much of the circle am I looking at, and then I'm going to take that times circumference. Okay. The second thing we look at, which is area of a sector. A sector is like a piece of pizza or a piece of pie. If I'm looking at a sector, it's like this piece of the circle right here. So it's like a piece of the pie. So again, the sector is just a piece of the entire thing. And so when I'm looking at this sector, this AB here, I'm just saying how much of the circle, how much of the area am I talking about? And so we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to take our pi r squared, which is our area, and multiply that by central angle over 360. Okay? Let's look at a couple of examples. So first thing it does is ask us to find circumference and area here. So we know circumference and area. All we need is the radius. Well, right here it tells me the radius is 5 inches. So circumference is 2 pi times 5, which is 10 pi, which we know when we type into our calculator gives us 31.4. And that is inches. When I find area, pi times 5 squared, which gives me 25 pi. Again, when we type that in our calculator, we know we get area equals 78.5 inches squared. So that's the circumference and area of this circle here. Now, if I want to find the arc length of BD, okay, arc length and area of its sector. So we know BD is this arc from B over here to D. So the first thing that I need to know here is I need to know what that central angle is. Because when I'm finding arc length, we just talked about how we're doing central angle divided by 360 times whatever our circumference is. Well, we know this right here, this arc creates this central angle. So we know our central angle is 66 plus 45, which gives me 111 degrees. And so all we're going to do to find arc length is we're going to take 111 over 360 times our circumference. Well, we already just found out our circumference is 31.4. So if we take 31.4 times 111 divided by 360, we get an arc length equal to 9.7, and in this case it was inches. Okay, same thing for area of the sector. Now we're looking for the area of this piece right here. And again, that's just a piece of the area. So we're just going to take, so here we have area of the sector. So we're just taking our 111 over 360, and we're multiplying that by the area of the entire circle, which is 78.5. So we take our 78.5 times 111, divide that by 360, and we should get area of the sector equal to 24.2. Again, area is inches squared. Okay, I want you guys to do these two examples here. So pause your video. Once you're done, unpause the video and the answers will be there. All right, guys, here's the two answers that you should have got. Check those and proceed on to lesson number 14, practice.